What's up, everybody? We are back, episode number 21 of Big Five Pod. I am, of course, your co-host, Kyle Morello. Next to me, the one and only Jake Copestick. How we doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well. Things are heating up. Definitely, we got a couple games to go over. Not, I guess, our usual week because we don't have 5 games to talk about, but we have 3, and then we have 5 for the weekend, obviously. And obviously, like I said, things are heating up. We're right smack in the middle of conference play. And correct me if I'm wrong. 44 days away from the bracket, right?
44 days away from
44
Selection
days
Sunday. I
away. Oh
texted
my
you that
gosh,
this morning.
can't believe.
Yeah, which means we're
Word.
about 49 from the first Thursday of the tournament. So,
Yeah, can't wait.
baby, we are
We're
heating
yeah,
up.
we're right there. We're right there. I'm so excited. I'm already getting all giddy for it. So looking
Dude,
forward to it.
Me too. I mean, listen, I am praying that one of these 5 teams will make the tournament. I think we really only have 2, maybe 3 that are good shots. So we'll see what happens. But either way, I'm excited for March anyway. But we got a lot to get into in Big Five land. So why don't we get right into it here? We'll go in a little chronological order here. So Tuesday night, Salle fell to Davidson, 74-67. Tell me if you've heard this before. Not a good shooting night from the Explorers. 34% from the field, 27.8% from 3. Fassini John made 11 points on 2 of 10 from the field, which didn't help. Daron Shepard, 14 points on 5 of 8 from the field. Another good game from him. Definitely like what I'm seeing from Daron Shepard. And Clue Brentley, 10 points on 2 of 6 from the field. He didn't play a ton in this one, which I'm sure you can go over a little bit. They've lost 4 in a row though now, the Explorers. So things are not looking great. They also had 14 turnovers, which is par for the course for them. Listen, they were in this game. They only lost by 7 points. It's not like Davidson blew them out of the water. We talked about how Davidson's kind of regressed from past years, being that A10 champion caliber team. Now they're kind of falling off a little bit this year. New coach, lost a lot of players. So different team, but still Salle could not get it done in this one. Things are bleak right now for the Explorers. Do you have anything kind of to say on them right now?
So first thing, don't mean to correct you, but guy's playing well. So let's make sure we get his name right. Deshaun Shepard.
Deshaun Shepard. Okay.
Yeah. Just want to make sure because
it's funny because I wrote it down phonetically too, and I still got it wrong. So I guess I looked at the screen a little too quickly there, but thank you for the correction.
It's all good. It's all good. It's okay. And I probably pronounced some guys' names right. I think with Villanova, I don't know if it's Hausen. I hear Hausen on the broadcast, but I've heard Hausen the whole year. So if I get a definite pronunciation on that, we'll make sure we get it right. But guy's playing well, so we'll get his name right. In this game, lineups are a little weird. So Jorge Sanchez Ramos got his second start of the season. His first one came at Cincinnati, where they turned the ball over 25 times and kind of got blown out by the Bearcats. But I'll talk about that first. Talk about like the rotations and everything because it was weird. I mean, a lot of people are like, okay, so 4 of your top 5 guards and Brickus, Braitley, Nickelberry, Gill, none of them are going to start this game. I don't think anybody saw that coming. But listen to a little bit of Fran Dunphy's post-game press conference, and he said something. I'm going to assume that maybe these guys relate to a practice or a meeting or something like that. I don't really know if that's exactly what it is, but he said something that guys going to be more detail oriented. We have different ideas of time management or something along those lines, but it made it sound like guys may be late for something. So in that case, the freshman Jorge Sanchez Ramos gets a second start of the season. All these guys come off the bench, not playing a ton of minutes. And unfortunately for LaSalle, you got to start a freshman in Jorge Sanchez Ramos, who's only played 5 games this year, 2 of which he started. And he's got to go up against Foster Lawyer, who played 2 years at Michigan State and is in his 5th year. You have 2 completely different, you have a guy who's very old versus a guy who's getting one of his first starts and some of his first college action here. So that's the first thing. Ramos, 25 minutes, 1 assist, 1 steal, 4 turnovers. Foster Lawyer, 12.6 assists, 3 steals, had 2 threes late in this game that I felt kind of buried the Explorers. But they were actually up in this game for a little bit in the first half. And they were making shots, albeit without some of their best guys on the floor. But Sam Benenga dominated them. Talked about our last episode, 6'9", 240, very, very strong guy, played a lot of minutes for this team last year, a lot of good minutes for him as well. And he was a load inside, but he was 3-3 from 3-point range as well. Not only was he getting it done inside and made some free throws, but he hit some big shots. He had a 3 off an offensive rebound in the second half that I felt was like another bucket that was kind of a dagger for the Explorers. But bottom line here is 2 field goals over the last 7+ minutes in the second half. Not going to get it done. A couple offensive rebounds kind of killed him as well. But it's the scoring drought at the end, which you can say, hey, of course, your top 5 guards didn't play a lot in this game. So Jameer Brickus only logged 9 minutes, didn't score. Khalil Brantley, 15 minutes. He had 10 points. Josh Nickelberry only played 3 minutes. Anwar Gill, 7 minutes. So I guess that's kind of the punishment. And, if you're late to something or something, I'm going to assume that's what it is, because I'm sure this isn't how anybody expected this game to be played out, with these guys playing so few minutes and coming off the bench even. So that's definitely something big you can attribute that to. But again, Deshaun Shepherd, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. Like I keep saying, he just gives this team some explosion, some athleticism. He rebounds well and can get up and sky in for boards, which is big. But Sam Menenga dominated this game. And then Foster Loyer, he's an old player, not going to turn the ball over a lot. 6 assists, 3 steals, and those 2 threes late where they get him the ball on a dribble handoff. If you give him a split second, I mean, he's gonna rise up and knock down shots. So there was a couple shots late that kind of killed him here and killed the momentum, even if they were battling, trying to play defense, grab some boards and get out. They just couldn't get it done offensively late in this game. And that's what buried him here. Sam Menenga dominated, was kind of unguardable. I didn't think the centers did a bad job. Dunphy also said in the post-game presser that he thought they did a good job of walling up and at least going vertical and making him make a tough shot, because he's only 6'9", and when you got to go against the Josius, who's got a couple inches on him, there's that. But defensively, he actually made some nice moves to kind of tightrope the baseline and spin around guys too. So you have to give him credit. Sam Menenga had a huge game here, 27 points, 10 of 16, 3 of 3 from 3, and 11 boards. That's ultimately what did him in. Some late shots from Loyer, and then that stretch at the end. They haven't shot the ball well, and to go in down the stretch here late in the game, last 7+ minutes, he only made 2 field goals. They had some free throws in there, but to only make 2 shots, it's going to be hard to win games against whoever you may be playing. So unfortunately, they're on a bit of a skid here. But offensively, I feel at some point, I feel like they're due to make some shots here, but a bunch of the big guards didn't play. And then that ultimately, it was that stretch, 7+ minutes, only make 2 shots. Not great. Definitely not going to get it done. So they have another game coming up against Rhode Island that we'll talk about, a team that they beat in very exciting fashion at home not too long ago. But unfortunately, another game that they dropped here, just couldn't get it done offensively.
No, it wasn't pretty. Listen, I don't know what happened with those, with LaSalle's core guards there, in terms of maybe disciplinary issues or whatever the case may be. If it was that, honestly, good for Coach Dunphy for sitting them. If he wants to build this program back up, because this program's been in the dumps for some time, and the only way to do it is through discipline and teaching guys the right way to do things. However, if it was not something like that, and it was just like his decision, which I couldn't imagine it being that, because that's, some of their most talented players. But if it was that, I don't know.
Yeah. And again, just want to come out and say, I'm not here. That's the way he made it sound. He said they got to be more detail oriented. My guess is that I guess they showed up late to something. But again, I don't have that confirmed. I'm not here to kind of rain on that parade. But I would assume something like that were to happen if 4 of your top 5 guys, like I said, are going to come off the bench and some of them not even log 10 minutes in this game.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely don't want to see that. And hopefully for the next one against Rhode Island, they'll be able to have their stars play more and come out with a victory in that one. So we shall see what happens. We're going to get into that one a little bit. So we're going to move on though. We had 2 games on Wednesday night. Do you want to take over this one that we're going to next?
I'll take over for a little bit, but then I'll kick it back to you, because Kyle was in the building. He got himself a press pass to the Liacouras Center. He got into the post-game presser, asked Coach McKee a question, doing some Big J stuff for our pod. So good for you. Good stuff.
Thank you.
With that being the case, I will kick it to you. You were in the building at the Liacouras Center for South Florida and Temple winning this game in overtime. What did you see in this game?
Yeah, I saw a lot of great things in this game, and I saw a lot of not great things in this game. Listen, they weren't shooting the ball all that well for a lot of the first half. They were settling for jump shots. They were still playing good defense. I mean, well, a little bit later in the first half. And early in the first half, I noticed that South Florida was kind of getting some open looks in the corner. Jameer Chaplin being one of those guys that knocked down some of the shots for the Bulls. However, second half, or late first half, most of the second half, Temple really started kicking the ball inside, driving to the basket, getting shots in the mid-range. And it was working for them because they ended up going up 10 a little bit later in the game. I believe the score was 65-55 at one point. Then about 5 minutes left, USF switched to a zone, threw Temple off their entire game. It was a struggle for those last 5 minutes. Ended up USF coming back, went to overtime. Damian Dunn missed a long three at the end there, potentially winning it in regulation, but it went to overtime. And then overtime, I mean, it was the Caliph battle show. He had the first 5 points of overtime. I believe he had 7 of 9 in overtime, finished with 25 points on 9 of 18 from the field. It was, they pulled it out in the end. I don't think the players were happy in the post-game press conference, especially Damian Dunn. He was the first one to speak. It was him and Nick Jourdain along with Coach McKee. And Dame didn't seem extremely happy with how the game went, which I wouldn't either. I mean, that's a team that they should have beaten in regulation and beaten by a little bit. And they were up 10 at one point, like I said. So definitely something they wish they would have closed out in regulation, but it's a good thing they did close out in overtime, and Caleb Battle being a big part of that. Damian Dunn too. He had 15 points, 8 rebounds, 4-11 from the field. I do want to talk about the defensive, tandem of Nick Jourdain and Korjan Kuch. I mean, they were playing out of their mind, carrying over from the Houston game. Jourdain had 11 points, 2 blocks, 2 steals. Korjan Kuch also playing pretty well, but Nick Jourdain talked about this in the press conference, like their communication defensively and rebounding has been better recently, and especially in this game, I guess Core was communicating with him more, which you love to see because that's a really important part of defense. Especially with 2 guys being on the block, is communicating and saying who's going to get what and who's going to get what assignment. So definitely good on them. One thing that I will say was bad in this one, 16 turnovers. Of course, has been an issue with this Temple team. Actually, I was looking on KenPom. It was either the other day or about a week ago, but I believe Temple is the worst team of the Big Five in turnover percentage on offense. So something they need to clean up, but they also did force 18 USF turnovers. So definitely good on them. Another thing was rebounding. They out rebounded USF by 6, and it was a big thing coming in because USF's a good offensive rebounding team, and they were actually able to out offensive rebound USF. So it was an interesting one. I was glad that they were able to close it out because they've had a little bit of trouble with that, especially earlier in the season. I think they've gotten a little bit better with it as we've gone on, obviously with the Houston game too. But you would have liked it to have been more pretty, but a win's a win. Actually, as Coach McKee said in the press conference, a win is a win, and it doesn't matter how ugly it is. Speaking of the press conference, though, I did ask Coach McKee about, how they were able to adjust to going inside later in the first half, most of the second half, and then how USF kind of threw them off. So take a listen here because I do want to play this clip. So take a listen.
Coach, it seemed that at the end of the first half and a lot of the second half, the team was driving to the hoop more instead of settling for jump shots. And then kind of later in the second half, I guess when they switched to a zone, it seemed like you were settling for more jump shots. Was that just because they were in the zone, or was that more of an adjustment on your end?
No, the game plan coming into every game is always attack the basket. I like to play inside out. Throw the ball inside, drive, touch the paint, kick it out. That's how you generate quality shots, and we settle. We settled for a lot of shots early on. I think you have to put pressure on the defense. I thought South Florida did a pretty good job of putting pressure on us by attacking. And that's how you get to the free throw line. That's how you get guys in foul trouble. That's how you control the game. So they know the game plan coming in. It's a matter of executing.
All right. Like I said, that was Coach McKee after the game talking about, kind of how they were switching, or rather how they adjusted to USF zone. Definitely an interesting answer from him. So yeah, I mean, listen, this was a game that they needed to have, and they had it. Every game's a must have at this point if they want to make the tournament. Even if they want to, it's not going to happen probably, but be an at-large team. But it was a good win. Like I said, definitely one they needed, and they have another big one on Saturday, which we will get to in a few minutes here. All right. Well, while I was covering that game at the Liacouras Center, you were watching the George Washington and St. Joe's game at home. the full game because we were both tweeting about it, different games, obviously. This was also an exciting one. 92-91, George Washington win in overtime. And since I spent a whole lot of time on that game, I'm gonna let you spend a whole lot of time on this game. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Okay. So slow start for the Hawks. Cameron Brown, by the way, we talked about how he's been very, very hot shooting the ball. Top 10 in D1 and 3-point percentage. He started out this game 3 for 3, but unfortunately he had 3 fouls in the first half and had to sit for a long period of time. So he had to sit for a good chunk of the first half. And St. Joe's went down as many as 16, but a big 15-3 run with about 4 minutes left cut this lead to 4. They got this game to a manageable margin where they could stay in it and force overtime, like I'm going to talk about. So they come out of the break 4 or 5 from 3 to start the second half. Kasper Klacik had 3 threes in just over 2 minutes, which is huge. They ended up getting the lead for a little bit. And then from this point on, ended up being a very, very tight game on both ends. So Eric Reynolds is in foul trouble. He fouled out in regulation. Cameron Brown then fouls out with 3.5 minutes left in overtime. And I got to say, although they lost this game, you have to be supremely impressed with the effort from St. Joe's. They battled, and after winning 3 straight, they almost stole one on the road here in Foggy Bottom against George Washington, who now is a third-place team in the A10 with the losing streak that Dayton's been on, losing at George Washington and then losing at Rhode Island earlier this week. So you have to be impressed with the effort. These guys fought back. They almost went down 20 on the road. They battled back here and got this to a close game. And with Eric Reynolds and Cameron Brown both in foul trouble, and then Cameron Brown was cold in the second half, which I'm not surprised. He sat most of the first half, had to sit through halftime. Of course, you got into a little bit of a rhythm, and then when you got to sit that long, I'm not surprised anybody would do that if they got to sit for that long. It's rare that you would have a player sit that long and then be able to come back in and continue the shooting streak that they're on. So they battled through Cameron Brown having a performance that we're not used to seeing from him, as he's been shooting the ball very well. He comes out after a prolonged period of time on the bench, and Lynn Greer really stepped up for these guys. A personal 10-0 run in the second half. He was unstoppable. Just give him a screen, let him get downhill. It really didn't matter who it was on, and he was able to finish at the basket. He had a couple of threes in the first half too, but him getting to the basket and getting downhill, that was pretty much their offense. And why would you do anything else when he's that hot? So a 10-0 run from him. Then they get later into the game here. Eric Reynolds fouls out. They put the press on when they're down. They get Lynn Greer downhill, misses the layup, tips home his own miss, and then we go to overtime. And then they even had a shot to win it in overtime. Now, Rasheer Fleming missed a couple layups. They had some chances where they could have had some buckets here to maybe get a lead and maybe close this one out. But regardless, you have to love the effort. They forced another turnover on the press really late in the game. I believe with about 12 seconds left. They gave them another possession to potentially win it. Unfortunately, they couldn't get Lynn Greer a touch, and Rasheer Fleming had to throw up a 3 that unfortunately didn't even catch the iron. So, but regardless of that, I don't want that last possession to take away from what St. Joe's did in this game, because they fought back like hell. They gave them they forced a turnover on the press to get to overtime, and then they almost got another chance here to get a bucket and win this game. So you have to love the effort here. However, Brandon Adams, career high 32 points, 11 of 22 from the field, 7 of 11 from 3. He had some tough shots in the paint late in this game too, when George Washington really needed a bucket and couldn't get anything going. James Bishop at 22, he averages 21.9, pretty much hit his average, but he needed 19 shots to do it. So they were forcing some tough looks for him. He was taking some tough shots. He's a volume shooter. That's what he's going to do. But they were able to survive here. If you hold James Bishop to his average, I'll take that as a success when he is the game that he did. But Brendan Adams is huge here for the Colonials. A huge game. Like I said, career high 32 from him. Couldn't miss. Hitting tough shots inside the 3-point line. Really couldn't miss from outside it. But overall theme here, the fight from St. Joe's. 2 of their best players get fouled out of this game. Cameron Brown, after the long period on the bench, really couldn't get into a rhythm again and hitting shots. But Lynn Greer, 31 points and 11 rebounds. Easily his best game on Hawk Hill this year. Was a huge game from him. And even with Cameron Brown and Reynolds out, he was able to carry him. So they got contributions from a lot of guys. They almost pull one out here. So although the winning streak comes to an end, you have to love the effort here from the Hawks against a very, very good team in the A10 and George Washington.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows that they can compete with some of the talent there, which even a few weeks ago, they weren't able to. I mean, they played some games against some of the better opponents in the A10, it didn't go well. So it's good to see that they're bouncing back, and they fought back in this one. They were down a lot early and they fought back. So definitely good on them for that one. All right, let's quickly go through these upcoming games because we got a whole bunch this weekend. Very exciting matchups, and we will start back with cherry and white. Temple traveling to Central Florida. They just played South Florida, Central Florida on Saturday at noon. And listen, this UCF team, this is a good team. This is a good team. They actually played Houston on Wednesday night as well, and they played them pretty decent. I mean, I think it ended up being like a 12-point Houston victory. I don't remember the exact score, but I was monitoring that game a little bit. It was close for a while, but anyway, this UCF team, 13-7 on the year, 57th in KenPom. Breaking down their offensive defense, it's 65th in offensive efficiency, 55th in defensive efficiency. Some things they do well and don't do well. One thing that don't do well, 287th in turnover percentage. So they do turn the ball over a lot, which could play well in the Temple's hands in this one, because as we know, they do too. They're 12th in offensive rebound percentage, which, I know USF was up there too, but could be an issue for the Owls, but we'll see. They have some sides, especially with Jamil Reynolds being back, which also I forgot to mention that Jamil Reynolds is back. So it was great to see him on the court also on Wednesday night. UCF is 28th in free throw percentage, which Temple is right up there as well. And they're 71st in 3-point percentage. So this team does a lot of things well, especially on the offensive end. Turnovers have been their kryptonite a little bit when they've been not going so great. This will be an interesting matchup for Temple. It'll be a tough matchup for Temple. Also, speaking on the Jamil Reynolds front, he obviously transferred in from UCF. They didn't have any room for him over there. Someone asked Damian Dunn and Nick Jourdain about that on the press conference on Wednesday, and he said, he's been talking about it. He's ready to go. So I'm excited to see this one. I think he'll have a good game. What do I think will happen? I unfortunately think this is probably going to be a UCF victory playing at their place. If this was at the Leocore Center, I think I would maybe go with the Owls, but I do give a little bit of leeway to home court advantage. And this UCF team is really, really good. And I know Temple's both playing really well too, but it's going to be a very tough matchup. So I'm going to go UCF and probably a 3 or 4 point game. But what do you think?
So, yeah, you touched on a lot of good points there about what they do. I think Johnny Dawkins is a hell of a basketball coach. And if anything, it shows this year them being that good on defense and then being pretty solid offensively as well. He's got them in consideration, at least for an at-large berth. They've had some losses. They lost to Tulane. No one's going to knock you for the Houston loss, but they did drop that one as well, and they're 0-2 against the Cougars, although they played them competitively when they played them at the Fertitta Center. But I believe it was a loss against Tulane, and then they had another bad loss. And I don't know if it was SMU or another team, but they're on, I guess, a bit of a skid here, losing 2 or 3 in a row. But the reason I love Johnny Dawkins, this is a pretty good team last year. They lose Darren Green, who goes to Florida State, Brandon Mahan, Darius Perry, Shekem Bakijong all graduate. Isaiah Adams goes up to Buffalo. CJ Walker's been hurt this year. And then obviously they lose Jamil Reynolds, who comes over to Temple. And still, he's got this team in contention to potentially get an at-large bid in the tournament. Now, like I said, they have some work to do after dropping some games. But they lose 6 rotation players last year, and they're still very good this year. They bring in a freshman, Taylor Hendricks. A lot of NBA people like him as a potential 3-and-D guy. Leads this team in points, rebounds, and blocks. And just an overall kind of theme I liked about this team, going offense and defense, top 100 in not only shooting the 3, but defending it as well. Pretty well-rounded team here. Maybe an NBA guy here in Taylor Hendricks that a lot of people like as maybe a first rounder. So especially in this league, sometimes you don't always see that in the American, with a guy of this caliber. So I think it's going to be tough going down there. They do have a home win over Memphis that went into double overtime. That was an exciting game that ended in the hundreds. Couple injuries. If I can find anything, I will try and get them out as soon as possible. But like I said, CJ Walker's missed some time. He's only played in 4 games this year. And then for some size inside, Michael Durr, the Indiana transfer, he's been in the lineup, in and out of the lineup as well, and has been hurt. So especially when you add in the fact that this is a return game for Jamil Reynolds, and he now gives Temple some size inside, something to definitely consider. And if I can find anything on the injury front, I will definitely get that out as soon as I can. But yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you here. I think Temple could win this game. The way they're playing, I definitely think they could. However, if they're going to drop one here, I think it is this spot, going on the road against one of the best teams in the league. But they need this one. an at-large berth is almost done at this point. But if you want to have any chance of that happening at all, you're going to have to win games like this, because in the American, with Houston, with UCF and Memphis, that's probably about all like the great wins you're going to have. And they played East Carolina twice. They played USF twice, who were kind of toward the bottom here. So as far as getting quality wins in conference, these are the type of games that you need and you have to win. So if that's going to be the case, got to keep Taylor Hendricks, off the 3-point line. He's really, really a nice player. For a freshman too, to come into a program like UCF and put up the numbers he's had is very impressive. He blocks shots. He can defend effectively on the perimeter when he has to. So definitely a guy to look out for in this game, because he's going to be the guy that they're trying to feed and want to affect both ends of the court here. But I think I am going to take UCF here. Would love to see Temple win this game. Again, this is the type of game that they need. These are the type of wins that you need if you want to build any sort of resume and even give yourself a chance. This would be another huge game if they could steal one on the road. I just don't know if maybe UCF's due for a win. Temple's maybe due for a loss. So it hurts me to say. I think I'm going to go with Central Florida as well. However, it's okay if I'm wrong. It's okay. The Houston game,
definitely.
I pretty much everything that came out of my mouth, I think was wrong in that game. But that's okay. If the Owls win, the Owls win. But I think I'm going to take UCF in this game as well at home, protect their home court. They need a win. Temple's on a bit of a streak here. I don't know if I see them beating Houston and UCF, two of the best teams in this conference, on the road in a span of a week. So I think I'm going to roll with the Knights here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree. It's going to be a tough one. It's definitely one they can win, but I'm just not so sure that they will. But they can really only afford like another loss at the absolute most, too, depending on who it's to. I mean, if they lose the Houston game, but
yeah, it can't be a bad loss. Like if they, God forbid, they lose to Tulsa at home, then okay, we are pretty much at that point anyway. But if there's a sliver of hope here, they own one of the best wins in D1 this year with the Houston win. This would be another huge one.
Yeah, I mean, UCF, Memphis, Houston, those are the good wins in the conference. If they lose to those teams, not the end of the world, but it does hurt. Houston is like a different story. If they lose to Houston, I don't think they're going to be really held against them. But
they're just at the point where like they need them.
They got
to have all of them. Got to have all of them.
They exhausted their bad losses earlier in the season, and we talked about it plenty. We don't need to rehash it, but they did. That's what it is. So they need to win bad. Another team that absolutely needs another win bad is the one on your sweatshirt right there. The Penn Quakers are hosting Harvard Saturday at 2 p.m. at the Palestra. Good for them to be back at the Palestra. I feel like we haven't really talked about them being at the Palestra in a while, so maybe home cooking will be good for them. But this Harvard team's no joke. The 12-8, 153rd in Ken Palm, 83rd in defense. So they're a top 100 defensive team, which is really, really good. On the flip side, one thing they don't really do well, 3-point shooting, 345th in the nation, although they are 44th in the nation in 2-point percentage. They are also 298th in turnover percentage. So another team like Penn turns the ball over a lot. So this matchup will be pretty interesting. Listen, I'm no expert. I know basketball, definitely. No expert, but based on what these numbers telling me, Penn needs to find a way to force them outside of the arc and get them to hoist up some 3-pointers, because if they get inside the arc and they're getting to the paint, it's not going to go well for them, especially for a team like Penn, who's been really, really streaky shooting. And by streaky, I mean they haven't been good in a while. They're on a bad streak. So what are some keys to this game for Penn to finally get off the schneid and get a win against one of the best teams in the league?
So, you talk about how bad they are of a 3-point shooting team, not a great free throw shooting team either. So if this game gets close, you would hope that Penn can pull this one out. But the big fella inside, Chris Ludlam, almost 20 points a game, just a tick under 9 rebounds a game. They're going to want to get the ball inside to him, obviously. Now, if you have guys on the court that can't really shoot the 3 well, maybe throw some doubles at him, throw some digs at him, try and get him thinking, get him hesitating, get the ball out of his hands. Guy on this team, Luka Sakota, nearly 37% from 3 last year, having a bad year, not even shooting 30% this year. So maybe a guy that could make some shots here, that has in the past, but this year just hasn't been there. They need to win. Obviously, look, they need to win badly. Can't let them kill you inside. maybe force the ball out of Chris Ludlam's hands here, have some guys put up some bad shots, but they are a very good defensive team. However, I was in the building last year when the Harvard Crimson came to the Palestra, and in that game, Jordan Dingle had 33 points. He was 8 of 10 from 3. And in this game, Clark Slackard had 15 and knocked down both of his 3s. So I keep saying that Clark Slackard's the key if they want to get a win here. We know what Dingle can do, third leading scorer in D1. We know what he can do on a nightly basis, but it's Clark Slackard that's the key to this team. If they can get him going and you can get 45, 50 points from the two of them, I think they're going to win a lot of games in the Ivy League. But they need to get Clark Slackard out of the shooting funk that he's in, get him some looks. And it's going to be hard against a very, very good defense. But they've shown they can win. They were 2-0 against Harvard last year. I think this is I feel like I've been saying for the last 3 games, like this is a get right spot for Penn, but they're finally back at home. They are playing a good team, and they really need this one. There's still time left because of the competitiveness of the Ivy League for them to get into that top 4 and make the tournament. But games like this, they're definitely going to need. So I do think they win this one. But defensively, if you want to double the big guy, not give him easy looks, can't let him catch it in close, can't let him catch it pretty much in the restricted arc and go up, maybe double him, get the ball out of his hands, and gives you more time to help out on guys who aren't necessarily a threat to shoot. So I think maybe throwing a double with the big guy defensively is something that they could do, but they're going up against a team that doesn't shoot the 3 well. They don't shoot free throws well. But this game is going to be one on the offensive end. Obviously, you can't give them cheap ones and let a bad offensive team get into a rhythm here. But offensively is where this game has to. They got to perform on that end. They got to shoot the ball well. They got to knock down some threes. And they're going to need Clark Slackard to have a good game, which unfortunately I feel like I've been saying the last couple episodes. So if Clark Slackard has a good game here, I think they'll win. And I think Jordan Dingle has another big game. He had a really good game against Yale in their last game. They just weren't able to get the win. But I think we have a big game from Jordan Dingle here. I don't think he's going to hit 8 threes. I don't know how many more times he's going to do that, to be honest with you, because last year, I mean, he looked like he was Jordan out there. Like nobody could guard him. He's catching lobs. He's knocking down every 3. I mean, he banked in a 3 off the glass. He was unbelievable last year, man. So I'm hoping that this team can get a win, because I feel like I've been saying, oh, it's a get right spot, it's a get right spot, it's a get right spot. It hasn't been working, but I think the Quakers win here. But offensively, got to be humming, got to get Clark Slackard some looks, and just got to shoot the ball better, and they can come out of here with a W.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it really comes down to 3 factors. It comes down to taking care of the ball, making your shots, and Clark Slackard being effective. That's it. Those 3 things happen. They shouldn't lose any games at the Ivy League, but we'll see what happens, because those things haven't always happened, especially not together. So hoping for a better result this time for the Quakers, but we'll see what happens. Saturday at 2, so make sure you tune into that. All right, moving on. We got another game Saturday at 2. This one in the great state of Rhode Island, where I've spent some time recently. But LaSalle taking on Rhode Island, like I said, Saturday at 2. So Rhode Island team's not that good. 7 and 13, excuse me. 208th in Ken Palm, 348th in effective field goal percentage, 329th in 3-point percentage, 336th in 2-point percentage. So they don't score a ton. They're not a great shooting team. Also an interesting stat that I found via Ken Palm. Only 23.8% of their points come via the 3, which is 342nd in the country. So even when they are scoring, a lot of the time it's not from the 3-point ball, which obviously, you're not going to have teams having all their points come from 3s. That's just unrealistic. But to only have less than 24% is not good. So this is definitely a spot where, and I feel like this is also something we've been saying the last few episodes, this is a spot where the Salle can take advantage. I think this is a team that is on their level of talent. It's a team that they beat, just a few weeks ago. Hopefully their star players don't get into any issues in this game and they can actually play a full game. I don't see why LaSalle can't win this game. Do you see a reason?
So obviously the turnovers with this team, but I think a big reason why they won the last game was they only had 7 turnovers in that game. Khalil Brantley had 29
Crazy,
points.
right?
Jameer Brickus had, Jameer Brickus had some big shots in overtime, had a 3 late in the overtime period that propelled him to a win. And maybe we could be looking at, is this finally the game where LaSalle sees a little bit of positive shooting regression potentially? Also, is this maybe a letdown spot for Rhode Island? They just had a big home win over Dayton, who's been sliding a little bit, even getting some starters back healthy. So maybe that could be this could be a good spot for LaSalle. But You cut down on the turnovers. Now you have to go on the road. It's always hard to win, like we always say. But if you're going to turn the ball over less than 10 times again, you're going to give yourself a chance to win. Khalil Brantley was hot in this game and couldn't miss. And then they got some big shots when they needed it in overtime. So they fought. This game was close. They battled back to win this one. But they're going to turn the ball over a lot and give Rhode Island easy opportunities, then they'll lose. But if you're going to play a good game in the half court, cut down on the turnovers, you get some big performances from your big players. And then, hey, defensively as well, some double teams, you get to help off some guys, protect the paint a little bit, really make these guys work if they're going to get 2-point looks. And if they're not going to shoot, make them work to get inside the arc. So maybe they could scheme up something defensively as they kind of did the last time. So I don't know if there's a spot where I want to back LaSalle because they do have to go on the road and they're on a 4-game losing streak. And there's some stuff going on with them behind the scenes, I guess, is the last game. But maybe they're due, I guess. And this is a potential letdown spot, like I said, because Dayton probably went in there thinking they were going to spank Rhode Island and they ended up losing. So it's hard for me to back the Explorers right now. We really don't even know. I would assume that they would go back to normal for this game because they realize they need those guys. Screw it. Give me the Explorers. Give me them to sweep Rhode Island, but you gotta cut down on the turnovers and waiting for these shooting numbers to go up a little bit. I mean, it's just been bad the last couple of games. They haven't been able to just make shots at all. Feels just like it's been a struggle for them. They can't even get.
They haven't been above 40% in at least 2 or 3 episodes that we've done.
Yeah, and just they gotta be due for something, right? So I give me the Explorers here, just to sweep the Rams up in Kingston. I'm not comfortable doing it. If there's any news that we find out about any lineups, we'll be sure to pass that to you guys as well. But it's not a hard formula. You just got to make shots, It just hasn't been happening for them. Now, granted, the last game, like you said, with 4 of your top 5 guards who can really score the ball for you, not really play, that's got to be a factor for sure. So hopefully these guys learn their lesson. If anything did happen, they're motivated to play this game after not really playing much in the last game, and screw it. I don't really go against the big 5 teams anyway, right? Give me the Explorers here.
Listen, I mean, even though we are the Big 5 podcast, we're going to be honest in our analysis of these teams. And sometimes we are going to go against Big 5 teams, like with UCF against Temple. However, this is not one of those spots. I think I am going to take the Explorers as well. I don't know if it's whether they're due or, whether I think this is just a team that they can beat and they've beaten before. But I feel okay about this. I'm going to go with the Explorers too. So hopefully they can pull that out too. Excuse me. All right, let's stick with the A10. We're going to move on to Sunday, though. Sunday at noon, St. Joe's traveling to George Mason. George Mason team, not bad at all. 12-9 on the year, 130th in Ken Palm. They do some things well offensively. They are 32nd in effective field goal percentage in the country, that's an important stat. So it's really, really good on them. They're 52nd. Funny enough, they're 52nd in both 2-point and 3-point percentage. So funny that they have the same rank in both, which means they have a pretty balanced attack. However, 347th in free throw percentage. So getting to the line, or executing at the line rather, a little bit of an issue for George Mason. So listen, this St. Joe's team coming off a tough loss after coming off of 3 straight wins. I think they finally found some confidence because they showed it in this game against why am I absolutely blanking right now? George Washington. Thank you. My mind. That game against George Washington, they fought all the way back. Like you said, they were down 15. They came all the way back. They could put the ball in the hoop, the St. Joe's team. It's the defense that's really concerning, and the turnovers, obviously, as we've gone over. What do you think will be a potential outcome of this one?
So, yeah, I mean, you talk about this team's playing with confidence right now, and they're showing progress, which is the most important thing. They could have, picked up another win here and gone for 4 in a row. But regardless, I guess we're not really one for more victories. I've said that before, but a lot of progress there. It was a hell of a performance from them to be able to battle back and even just force the game to overtime, let alone give themselves a chance to win it. However, they're going up against a very good big man in Josh Adoro, 15 points, almost 8 boards a game. And then Victor Bailey, a guy who's in his 5th year and has played at 2 high major programs, 2 of which under Dana Altman at Oregon, one of my favorite coaches in college basketball. And he did his last 2 years at Tennessee under Rick Barnes. So guy's been in some winning programs. He's a 5th year guy. 12 points a game, but how about this? 48% from three. And guy's been a sniper this year on around 4 attempts a game and has been shooting the lights out. So we've talked about this is a team that really doesn't defend shooting well. You're going to have to do this here against a very dangerous 3-point shooter, but you're also going to have to be good inside against Josh Adoro, who's a very good player and one of the top bigs in this conference for sure. But look, this George Mason team, like you said, pretty solid. They got non-conference wins, one over Tulane and one over Toledo, who's been a powerhouse in the MAC this year, especially offensively. So some pretty solid non-conference wins as well. Right around the middle of the pack as far as the A-10 goes, as far as standings right now. But talk about the worst free throw shooting team in this conference, one of the worst in the country, and then one of the worst in turnover percentage as well. So if they want to put this press on, maybe try and slow the game down a little bit, kind of stifle this George Mason team and make them work to bring the ball up the court. Certainly something they could do, but got to keep the big man, Josh Adoro, from dominating this game. And then you got to defend the 3-point line here against Victor Bailey. I mean, him coming to the A-10, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. He's putting up great 3-point numbers because he played in the Pac-12 and played in the SEC last year. So he's going against some really good competition, an older guy, one of the best 3-point shooters. I would imagine 48% probably puts you tops in the country. I would assume so. So got to defend the 3 here. But hey, if this becomes a close game and they can battle back and they can muck it up a little bit and they can force some turnovers on the press, there's a bad free throw shooting team and maybe you could keep yourself in this game. So I think they'll make this game close. The effort has been very impressive from them. They're fighting, they're clawing, they're scratching, they're doing whatever they can to win. They won 3 games in a row. They dropped one that they easily could have won. I think St. Joe's is definitely thinking like, hey, Cameron Brown doesn't get in foul trouble as well as Eric Reynolds, and Eric Reynolds didn't have a great game. He had a good game, but shooting wise, there was definitely, I guess a little bit to be desired from him. We've seen him play a lot better. That's not a knock on him. The foul trouble definitely had something to do with it as well. But if these guys can get right, they can shoot the ball a little bit. And if Mason's going to miss a lot of free throws here and they can give themselves a chance to win this game, we'll see what can happen. But as long as they compete here, they give you good performance like they have been, and they're playing with a lot of confidence. So although this is a game that I don't know if they can win, because again, it's on the road, second one in a row for them after not having to leave the city of Philadelphia for a couple games, winning those 3 games at home. I guess at home because he only had to go to LaSalle. Right. But it's a tough game. Got to go on the road. I don't know if they'll win this one, but I do think they'll make this close and give themselves a chance to win it at the end. But credit to Kim English. Used to play at Missouri, second year here at Mason. Done a good job with these guys. So I think Mason squeaks out a close one here, but if St. Joe's gives them a chance to win at the end, they can get some missed free throws. I think they could squeak one out too, but I'm going to take Mason here at home.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I mean, this will be a tough matchup just because their shooting prowess is really, really good. I know their free throw shooting prowess is not, but I think that with the way that St. Joe's just kind of leaves people open sometimes, that's not going to bode well for them this one. Granted, they kept it close against the George Washington team. It was kind of in the same realm with that, but I'm going to take George Mason here in a relatively close one. Let's say 6 or 7 points, but I'm going to go with George Mason here in this one. All right, reach the final game of the weekend that we're going to go over. This is going to be a really, really good one of the Big East. Sunday at noon, Villanova traveling up to Providence, Rhode Island to take on the Friars. This Providence team, pretty good. 16-5 on the year, 31 in KenPom. They are 23rd in the AP poll. And here's some things they do well. They are 20th in offensive efficiency in KenPom, 60th in defense. They are 6th in the country in offensive rebound percentage. Very, very good team in that. And this is a stat actually I haven't gone over yet on this show because I didn't fully understand it until I did some more research on it tonight. But they are 16th in free throw attempts per field goal attempts. And if you're a KenPom subscriber, which if you're not a KenPom subscriber, I would definitely recommend it. It's like $21 for the year, which is an insane deal for the amount of analytics you get. Obviously, it doesn't go on for the entire year of college basketball, but Cope and I are subscribed and we do that. So that's how we get all these stats. So definitely recommend it. But field throw attempts per field goal attempts is on one of the 4 factors that they list, which is turnover percentage, effective field goal percentage, field throw attempts per field goal attempts, and I'm completely blanking the other one. I think offensive rebound percentage is up there too. So definitely an important stat. So listen, this Providence team, really good offensive team, a little bit behind that defensively, but definitely not bad. and they play in one of the toughest conferences in the country, as we talked about. And this Villanova team is going to have a challenge on their hands against this Providence team, especially since Nova hasn't played very well as of late. So I'm thinking Providence wins this one just because, obviously this Nova team's had a little bit of a layoff here. I believe it'll be 9 days by the time they kick off on Sunday at noon. So I don't know how that will go well for them, although they did win their last one, but I don't know, if they'll be able to get back into a rhythm. What do you think?
So I think this will definitely be a close game. However, something tells me that these Providence Friars might have a little bit of revenge on their minds. Nova swept them last year. This is a team that, and I know this game's being played at the Wells Fargo Center down in Philly, and it's not being played at Providence, but they don't lose much at, I'm going to still call it the Dunkin' Donuts Center. You will never hear me refer to where they play as like the Amica Mutual Pavilion. I'll never call it that. I'll call it the Dunkin' Donuts Center. But Villanova goes up there and beats them last year. And then I was at this game last year. It was on the first day of March. Jay Wright's last home game at the Finneran Pavilion. Nova squeaks out a close win, even without Al Durham playing for Providence. And they sweep the Friars last year. And Providence didn't lose many games. And there's a reason they went to the Sweet 16. They won the regular season, the Big East, which I think was a little fake because there was some COVID cancellation games they didn't have to play. And Nova swept them and had more conference wins than them. So I don't know how that works. But regardless, I think they might have a little bit of revenge on their minds here. It's a very, very good team. They lost a lot of guys from last year. Nate Watson graduates, Al Durham out, Justin Minaya out, AJ Reeves out, Noah Horkler, who's a flamethrower from 3, out. And Ed Cooley goes to the transfer portal. He gets Bryce Hopkins, who's almost averaging double-doubles, leading this team in points and rebounds. Been one of the best players, not only in the Big East, but he's been one of the best transfers in the country as well. He's been dynamite. Devin Carter's been very good. He leads this team in steals with almost 2 a game coming from South Carolina. He brings in Noah Locke from Louisville, who was previously at Florida as well, is the best 3-point shooter on this team. And they got a couple guys who used to play in the Big Five here. Another guy he brought in, Clifton Moore from LaSalle last year. He had 12 points and 2 blocks in their last game. He leads this Providence Friars team in blocks. They have Ed Croswell, who did 2 years at LaSalle, and they have Jared Bynum, who started his career at St. Joe's as well. So some Big Five guys in this game for sure. Ed Croswell's from Philly. Clifton Moore played at Hatboro Horsham, is from Ambler, not too far from where we're at. But you mentioned the rebounds on this team, and Ed Croswell is a big part of that. Now, you add in the fact that Bryce Hopkins averages over 9 rebounds a game. He's a big physical athlete who can get downhill and drive a little bit coming over from Kentucky. And really, like, Ed Cooley's just kind of been like, hey, we got to get this guy the ball, let him get to the basket, let him score, because he's been that good and he just didn't have that role at Kentucky. He's come to Providence and has really flourished. But he averages a bunch of rebounds. Ed Croswell, career best 7.6 rebounds, nearly 4 offensive rebounds a game. He was a great rebounder when he was at LaSalle as well. Continues to be in his 5th college season, almost 4 offensive rebounds a game, which is pretty impressive. So this team's deep. They're big. They're going to crash the glass. They want to get to the basket. Jared Bynum, Devin Carter, these guys can drive to the basket as well. Not a terrific 3-point shooting team, definitely upper half in the country, but still, they're deep, they're long, they're physical. They have guys that want to get downhill and drive. Just a very good, well-rounded team that you would expect from a terrific coach in Ed Cooley. But the Friars got swept by Villanova last year. This will be a big game down at the Wells Fargo Center because there's also a pretty big game going on across the street just a couple hours after this one tips off. So I think it'll be a close one. Like you said, Nova kind of had their bye week, if that's what you want to call it, 9 days off after the St. John's game at the Garden. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for them. They did win a couple games, and I think they had some good mojo going into this one. But they're going to need the rest to go up against a team like this. And I think we're going to find out just how real this Nova team is if they're, if we're going to find out if they can go on the road maybe, and they can win a couple games late in the Big East season because they beat Georgetown. They beat St. John's, who I've been trying to tell you all year is really not that good at the Garden, and they beat them in a close one in a low-scoring game. But now they're going to take a big step up in competition here against a ranked team that's very good, that's got some transfers that are playing big-time minutes. Just a very, very well-rounded team, but one that will crash the glass and wants to finish at the rim and use their athleticism to get there. And some experience as well is definitely a plus for these guys, with Jared Bynum being a 5th year, leads his team in assists. And they really got a lift from him the last game. They were able to beat down Butler last night at their own place. He came back after, I believe it was a hip injury. He was out for a little bit. They're a much better team when he's in there. So we're going to find out a lot about this Villanova team, that if this is a team that, hey, maybe they can make a run here in the Big East, potentially get in the tournament, or if maybe they just don't have it against these top tier teams in the Big East. So I do think this will be a close one. However, I think those Friars are going to have a little bit of revenge on their minds, because this is the only team in the Big East that they did not get a victory over last year. So I'm going to take the Friars in a close one. I don't want to, because this Nova team, they are coming off 2 straight wins, playing a big game at the Wells Fargo Center. But I'm going to take the Friars to win a close one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna have to agree with you, unfortunately, because I agree with your analysis. I don't really think I could have said it better myself. I was struggling to come up with words there, but it's just, this Providence team isn't like the best team in the Big East, but they're definitely one of the better ones in the Big East. So this is a really good measuring stick game for Nova, and if they can't pull this out, I'm not sure how many they will down the stretch against teams that aren't Georgetown.
And especially
well,
because
they already swept Georgetown, but
they got to go on the road. They still got to go to Marquette. They still got to go to Creighton. They still got to go to Xavier. They even got to go on the road to Providence as well. Like, they have some very tough road games on the schedule coming up here.
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. So it's going to be tough for them. So I'm not sure if this is one that they will be able to pull out, but we'll see what happens. And yes, also correcting myself, because I did say they were at Providence, but they are home at the Wells Fargo Center, like you said. So my fault on that. I really got to get sometimes better with proofreading before I do things. Most of the time I'm pretty good. I'd say I'm like an MLB umpire. Most of the time I'm getting it right, but there's a couple times where it's fine. Anyway, yeah, I think Providence will win this one. So that'll be an interesting one on Sunday. Some are saying it's the biggest sporting event in the city of Philadelphia on Sunday. So that's what I heard.
Some
are saying. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. But that's what some are saying. But anyway, that's all we got for this one. Cope, do you have any parting shots before we go here?
If you're going to the Villanova game, have a good time. Make sure you get a parking spot before those Eagles fans take them from you, which, no shot at Eagles fans for a game like that. Hell, I'd want to get to the parking lot at 7 or 8 a.m. too. But they almost moved that game. They almost moved that game. I think they were in talks to move it, but they're going to keep it there. So you'll Villanova tip off at noon. Eagles will kick off at 3. So definitely a big sports weekend down at the sports complex. I might be there for the Eagles tailgate potentially.
I also might be there.
I might even buy a ticket to go into the Nova game. Who the hell knows at this point? But yeah, it's going to be a madhouse down there. Would advise you take the subway rather than drive, because I would not want to be sitting at that traffic afterwards.
If you can take public transportation to the Villanova game, I would highly recommend doing so.
They just don't have a line. I guess you take the Paoli Thorndale line in from around Nova's campus, get off at 30th or something like that. Get off.
You could
figure it out.
Always that suburban would be the main thing. It's doable, but it will be a little bit of a pain. But definitely I wouldn't recommend driving, because that place is going to be packed probably in the very, very early in the morning. Because even they had an 8:15 kickoff against the Giants last week, and I'm pretty sure people started going to the parking lot by 11 o'clock a.m. So for a 3 o'clock game, I'm sure people will be there at 8 or 9.
They were hacking the system. The Philadelphia Wings, I think, were playing like a noon game, and the Eagles fans were buying up all the tickets they could get in the lots a couple hours earlier.
Yep.
They were hacking the system.
I heard that.
Good on their part. Those are some hardcore tailgaters, man. Some diehards.
The Eagles fans are a passionate bunch, is what we'll say.
They're for breed, man. It's what they live for. But hey, we're about to Super Bowl's coming up, but I'm not going to act like I'm going to say. I mean, maybe some are saying that Nova's the biggest game, but I'm definitely not here to say that. Eagles with a chance to go to their second Super Bowl in 5 years.
Obviously, this is all jokes.
Pretty big deal. Yeah.
I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, neither of us are Eagles fans, but we both might be at the tailgate, so we'll have to coordinate that.
Well, hey, I mean, it might also be a very good chance to scoop up some cheap Nova tickets to maybe sit in the upper level at the Wells Fargo Center. So we'll see. I will also be at this Penn Harvard game on Saturday, so I'll be at the Palestra checking them out. But yeah, a whole lot of sports going on down in Philly this weekend. Love it. Wish the weather was a little bit warmer, but can't have everything. But regardless, great sports weekend. Eagles, Nova, Penn, a lot of good stuff going on.
A lot of great stuff. And, if you're enjoying it, which I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're absolutely enjoying all the action, make sure you have a good time, enjoy yourself, and refresh for the week ahead, because I'm sure we're gonna have a great week of basketball to cover on here. So thank you all as always for tuning in. We appreciate your support, unwavering support, that is. Absolutely appreciate that. Make sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube. Make sure you follow our social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, at Big Five Pod. And of course, make sure you check out our audio only versions on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And with that being said, that's all we got for this one. Have a great weekend. We will see you next week.